as we go through the slides here. But it was an incredible adventure. The only really bad part was it took 31 hours to get home because of the layovers and of course that's a really far distance. But 31 hours to get back home from the time we left our hotel in Africa. So anyway, turn it over to Karen now.
Okay, so we were just astounded by the beauty. And I just want to read Romans 1:20, 1:20 A and B. For ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature. And that's what we experienced. Oh my goodness, the beauty was just incredible. So we started at Cape Town, and this is the view. Can you see my scroll, my arrow
Yeah,
there, my cursor?
we can see it.
Okay.
We can see it.
All right. Okay, so this is the view from our hotel in Cape Town, and this is called Table Mountain, and it was just an amazing view and experience. We did travel to the top of Table Mountain, but here is Keith in all his relaxation here with his passport here. Welcome to the Mother City. So Cape Town is called the Mother City of South Africa. And so the next day we journeyed to Table Mountain. And here is how we got to the top.
It's called Table Mountain because it's flat on top.
Can you hear the conversation?
No.
And the wind?
No.
Okay, so that was a gondola that took us up and it was spinning as well. And so here we are at the top of Table Mountain. It's an official new seven wonder of nature. And here's another gondola, okay? And then here are some views from the top. Oh my goodness, look at that.
Lower right-hand corner, this is a view of Cape Town below.
Yes. And just some other views. This is called Lion's Head right here. And then this is another view of the sea, the ocean.
It's very cold and windy at the top of the mountain.
Very cold. Mm-hmm. And this is called the 12 Apostles. There were actually 16, but they called it the 12 Apostles. And they named them, but they were names that we can't pronounce. They were names that were not the apostles. Here we are at a park.
A city park in Cape Town.
City park. Okay, so this was our tour guide, Chris, in Cape Town, and he has taken us to what, Keith? It's Bocamp, which is the Muslim area. And the reason why these houses, their living quarters and the businesses are in bright different colors is because until they were freed from slavery, they had to have all white houses. So the moment that they were freed and were able to purchase the houses, then they went out and got bright paint. And then this is a mosque within Bocamp. And then, of course, we are here with Nelson Mandela, and this is his speech. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And
just a statue. It's not really
celebrating his release from prison. And then this was his speech: friends, comrades, and fellow South Africans, I greet you all in the name of peace, democracy, and freedom for all. I stand here before you, not as a prophet, but as a humble servant
Uh-oh.
of yours. Your tireless and heroic sacrifices have made it possible for me to be here today. I therefore place the remaining years of my life in your hands. And then we had a day off, and so we visited the aquarium, Two Oceans Aquarium in Cape Town. And this guy was quite interesting. Look at his teeth. See his teeth.
While we're watching the shark, we should say a couple things about Nelson Mandela. Before we got to Africa, we thought he was probably revered as a god or something because of all that he had done. But it turns out that the people of South Africa have, many of them have lost their love for Nelson Mandela because he
Mhm.
never really delivered on the promises of electricity, education, water, that sort of thing. And in a recent election last month, it was toward the end of May,
Mhm.
the African National Congress, which was Nelson Mandela's party, so to speak, has for the first time since Nelson Mandela came into power actually lost its majority. They're no longer they're no longer over 50%. I think they're 40 something percent. So the African National Congress now has had to party, or I should say, bring on a partnership of another small party to remain in power. But Nelson Mandela is not revered as much as you would think in South Africa.
Right. And our guide Chris, he's a tour guide, but on the off days he also is an Uber driver. And he was talking about he has 8 people that he takes care of in his house, and the electricity goes off every night at 6 o'clock, and so he has to bring fast food home for the family. Okay, here we are. Oh my goodness, the oceans were so beautiful. This is on our way to Cape Point.
Cape to the
Hmm.
Cape of Good
Cape
Hope.
Point,
This was
Cape
this
of
was an
Good.
all day travel for us. So it was about an 8 hour trip
Mm-hmm.
from Cape Town down to the Cape of Good Hope, and then we circled back.
Yes. So you can see the beautiful waves. It was very windy there. Very windy. Not something you could really swim in. Okay, this is an ostrich that was on a farm, and so he's well taken care of. Now, look at these ostriches. These ostriches are wild. See the difference? And then there was a baboon just walking on the road, his road. And here we are at the Cape of Good Hope, the most southwestern point of the African continent. Oh, tell us about the penguins, Keith.
These are African penguins. There are only two locations in Africa where you find these. And of course, they're much smaller than the penguins you see in Antarctica. But they were quite a surprise for us.
Yes, tiny. And so here you see a mama. She's taking care of some babies. So they had built these out of
Little
tree
shelters.
trunks. Yeah, little shelters. And then there's another mama in there. And then here are some penguins just enjoying themselves. And you see the penguins here on the boulders as well. Okay. And this is the plane we took from Cape Town to Suzuka,
Cuckoo,
Kukuza,
Skukuza.
Scusa.
So the story here is that this is a 37 passenger plane. This is the smallest plane Karen's ever been on. I've been on smaller planes, but this was the smallest for Karen. So as soon as we got on the plane and before we even buckled up, Karen is panicking. She wants to know where the exit row is. In case of an emergency, how do I get out of this plane? It was a perfectly safe plane, but it just was smaller than she'd ever been on. She did not like that.
But this was our beautiful view from the plane. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, this
Uh,
was the airport. Go
it's
ahead,
not
Keith.
really. It's really not an airport. It's just a building. This is one runway. This is a building out in the middle of nowhere. So we have now traveled from Cape Town into the northeast portion of South Africa. And if you look at it on a map, you could probably see Kruger National Park. It's a gigantic national park. And this is basically one building. It's the arrival, departure, and baggage all combined. I don't know that there's any mechanics out here, so I don't know if you had a problem with your plane, if you could get it fixed or not. It's out in the middle of nowhere. There's no town nearby or anything, but that's where that small 37 passenger plane landed.
And you see Keith right here. And this is the inside as well as this. And then behind some glass, there were the people that were waiting to take off, I guess, on this one plane.
Yeah,
So very interesting. And of course, there was no conveyor belt for the baggage. They hand carried everything.
it was a 2 hour flight to get here.
Yeah.
Okay, so after we arrived at Skukuza, which was that one building thing, then we met up with the tour people who were going to actually get us to Inyati. Inyati is a private game reserve. It's not a part of Kruger National Park. It's adjacent to Kruger National Park. So when the person picked us up, I said, well, how long is it going to take us to get to Inyati? And she said, well, maybe 2 hours, maybe. And it kind of depends on if you want to stop along the way and look at the wildlife. And
Or
it
if
did. It
they're in
took,
the road.
yeah, if the wildlife are in the road. So it took about 2 hours to get there. We saw elephants. We saw impalas. Impalas are kind of deer-like animals. And what else did we see?
Giraffes. Giraffes.
Giraffes. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's all kinds of
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
So here is our chalet. We didn't have a room. This was our chalet entrance on the left here that you can see. And we have the netting on the bed, for mosquitoes and that kind of stuff. And this is right behind our
Oh,
chalet. That was the Sand River that Karen just shot through real quick.
hmm.
The Sand River is right behind us. So it's the
Okay.
Inyati Game Lodge.
Okay. And so that was the entrance. Beautiful trees. Okay, so this is where we would have breakfast and dinner. Um,
It's
this was
outside,
just,
but it's covered.
hmm. Hmm. And then this is,
Guinea fowl. There's some guinea fowl at the base of the tree there.
yeah, right,
Little
right.
guineas.
And this is Sand River right behind us. Here's another picture of it. And then here is our mosquito netting around the bedding. There's Keith just relaxing. There I am having breakfast, and there Keith is having breakfast. See the netting around the juice? That's the juice and the water. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So this is the back. This is the back of our chalet. And so we have this beautiful tree that you'll see a little bit later as well. Here, Keith is sitting on our back porch. And here's a monkey that's enjoying himself on our way to our chalet. Here's some guinea fowl. They just come up in the mornings. Keith, you want to describe him?
That's a Inyala. Inyala. which again is sort of like a deer kind of a thing. He was just in our back area there, eating some of the blossoms off of the tree.
Yeah.
And on the
And
right
then,
hand side is a monkey.
see the monkey? And he's in our backyard as well.
They told you you had to keep your chalet locked up because if you didn't, the monkeys would get in and they would have a party.
Right, right.
So on the left here is the vehicle that we used every day. So we were there for 3 days. This is a Toyota Land Cruiser, a specially outfitted Toyota Land Cruiser. The guy on the front is named Lucas. He's our tracker. So as we're going through the African bush, he's looking for trails and tracks and stuff like that to find the animals. He's sitting on a special seat there with there is no seat belt. He holds on. There's no seat belt whatsoever, which is crazy.
He holds on right here, right
Yeah, he
here.
did two little handholds. So you see the driver behind the steering wheel. His name was Diff. He's the main guy. He's the guy in control. The three people you see behind him, they were visitors from London. They actually arrived at the game reserve about 15 minutes after we did. It's a family from London, and then you see Karen and I standing up in the back.
And notice we had coats on.
Yeah, it was yeah. So Diff is in the middle picture here. He's carrying a 475 Magnum rifle, and all of the drivers would have a rifle with them out in the bush just in case they needed it. We never needed it. We never were in danger or anything, but they were required to carry it with them.
Okay, and this is another Inyala. Here
Here
we
we are
are,
going off in the bush.
off-road.
Well,
Talk about
off
off-road.
Yeah, off-road is interesting because when we spent 3 nights in Cape Town, and of course then we went to the airport to fly up to this game reserve, and there was another couple in the airport that we recognized from our hotel. We'd never really spoken to them in the hotel, but we knew that they came from our hotel, and so Karen struck up a conversation with them, and they said, "Well, they're also going to Skakuza and do one of these things like this." And they said, "Well, what hotel are you guys staying at?" We said, "Well, we're not staying at a hotel. We're staying at the game reserve in a chalet." And they said, "Oh, yeah, you guys will be able to go off road." We had never thought about on road or off road. Where they were staying, they were going to stay in a hotel, and I don't know exactly their location, but they had to stay on the road. They couldn't go off into the bush like this. And they realized that after they made all the arrangements and were sorry they didn't stay at a place like ours where you could go off road. Because if you only have to stay on the road, then you can't really get back in there and find a lot of animals that otherwise you'd be able to find. And we did a lot of off-roading. We did more off-roading than we did on-roading. And we would just go tearing through that bush, small trees, 3-4 inches in diameter. We just roll over those things because you had like 4 or 5 of these vehicles that would go out at the same time in different directions trying to find animals. And if one of the drivers found something, then he would radio the other drivers and say, "Well, if you come over here, then we've seen this leopard or whatever." And so if our driver got notified of that, he'd just go rip roaring right through the bush to get wherever he had to go to. And again, Lucas sitting on this thing, there's no seatbelt.
Lucas.
You just hold on.
Okay, so we'll show you. Here we go, off-road. Watch, he has to move the branches.
Yeah,
And
you have to watch.
we had to move branches too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise you get hit in the face.
So there he is looking for tracks. Okay, so we've discovered some animals and they're talking about it. Oh,
Now,
it's time for snacks.
so we got to Inyati about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the first day we arrived. And they told us as we were started checking in kind of a thing, We hadn't even been shown our chalet yet, and they said, "You got 30 minutes." You got 30 minutes for what? Well, the first game drive is within 30 minutes. You leave at 3:30 in the afternoon for your game drive, and so you leave at 3:30, and then about 6 o'clock, 6 p.m., you'll stop out in the middle of nowhere for snacks. And they said, well, what do you want to drink with your snack? So you can, ask for cola or wine or, whatever it is you want to drink with your snacks. And so they take that along with them. So here we have stopped for snacks. And you see a couple little cans on the front of the Land Cruiser here. That's got little stuff to eat and stuff like that. And there's a bottle of wine there. And the lady you're looking at is the wife from London, and next to her is her daughter. And the guy on the right is Diff. That's our main ranger slash driver. So you have snacks for 15 to 20 minutes, but then you got to get back to Inyati by about 7 because dinner is at 7. So again, we left at 3:30 in the afternoon, stopped for snacks about 6. And then around 6:30, you start heading back because dinner is served at 7.
So you notice there's a little tablecloth, and this grill was down here, and it just pops up to make a little table or shelf.
Yeah,
And then watch
the
Keith. See Keith, he's holding on for dear life because we're off road. Okay, this is an African buffalo, and he's all alone. See the bird on his nose getting bugs. So he's welcoming the bird. Okay. So there's a story. This is the equivalent to the eagle. Um, so the story about the flowers. There were tiny little flowers all over the place, and I asked the wife. I asked her, are you seeing these little tiny flowers? And she says, oh, yes, yes. And then she asked her husband, did, did you see the flowers? No. And I asked Keith, no. And so it wasn't very long, a couple of minutes later, um, the Englishman said, oh, there's a flower. There's a flower. So he was so proud of himself because he noticed the flowers.
hippo.
Hippo, yeah. Okay. Lions. Okay. Isaiah 11:6, 6 to 9. In that day, in the day that Jesus returns, in that day the wolf and the lamb will live together. The leopard will lie down with the baby goat. The calf and the yearling will be safe with the lion, and a little child will lead them all. The cow will graze near the bear. The cub and the calf will lie down together. The lion will eat hay like a cow. The baby will play safely near the hole of a cobra. Yes, a little child will put its hand in a nest of deadly snakes without harm. Nothing will hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain. For as the waters fill the sea, so the earth will be filled with people who know the Lord. Lions, majesty. Oh my goodness. These are beautiful, beautiful animals.
We're
So
about
here we go. Go
we're
ahead.
about 20 we're about 20 feet away from those
Yeah.
animals.
Okay. Here they are on the road. You notice there's two male lions,
They're brothers.
brothers.
You see the other vehicle in the background.
And here's some more lions and babies just playing. Okay, so he has spotted something. He has spotted something and he's paying attention. Keith, you want to talk about what I didn't get?
Yeah, we were stopped on one side of the Sand River, when these lions came up behind us. And one was about probably 50 feet away, whatever. But we were also very close to the Inyati where we were staying, our chalet. And you could see the grounds of our chalet area, and there was a bunch of impalas up there, just wandering around on the grounds where we had been walking earlier. And this lion had seen them, and he acted just like a cat. He lowered his head, kind of froze, looking at those impalas. And then the impalas went on. The impalas had no idea this lion was even around them, but they moved on quickly. And so then he knew he wasn't going to be able to get one of them. And so then he walked a different direction. But it looked just like your personal home kitty cat in terms of seeing a mouse. His head dropped, he froze, and he, for a second there, thought he might have a little lunch. And by the way, at this game reserve, all the animals eat each other. I mean, they're not being fed by anybody, so
No.
they eat impalas or whatever they can find to eat. And those lions you saw earlier had full stomachs, so they'd had some kind of a recent kill, and they were not aggressive to us. Here you go.
Full
Fat
belly.
tummy. Full belly.
Yeah. Oh my, it's time for sleep.
These
Okay,
are
so
brothers.
these are brothers. He's licking his paws.
We're about 20 feet
Not
away.
not paying attention to us. Oh, they're sleeping.
This is on the last game drive we were on one evening. We were having snacks, and our driver got word that these lions were laying down sleeping nearby. So we hurried, put the snacks up, jumped in our vehicle, and tore through the bush to get there. And you can see in the lower left, that's me. I'm
Yeah.
probably we're 5 feet from those lions. Two females, two cubs, and apparently just sleeping. And every once in a while, the mother would look up at us and then just put her head back down.
And then giraffes.
A
A
There's
giraffe.
your impalas. There's your impalas.
Impalas. Okay. And then this is a tribute to Kruger. Go ahead.
Of Kruger National Park fame.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so he created the national park. More impalas. It's in giraffes. Keith,
This is the very first morning. So we arrived one afternoon, went on a game drive. The very next morning, and so what happens is, you have to get up at 5:15, and they will beat on your chalet door, telling you to get up, because you have to meet other people at 6 for kind of muffins and juice, that sort of kind of a little light sampling of breakfast kind of a stuff. And then at 6:30 a.m. you leave. And this is the first morning that we're out, and we can't exit Inyati entrance because this elephant is standing there. So that as we got in our vehicle and tried to exit into the bush, there's the elephant just standing there, a big bull elephant.
He was eating the flowers off the tree. Another elephant. Another elephant. Okay. Eating, enjoying snack food. Okay, we came upon a herd that had babies. And so they became concerned, the mamas became concerned. And so they started shuffling off the babies behind the trees. But there was one elephant who was standing guard. He was standing guard, making sure that we were okay and we were not going to bother the babies. But he started coming towards Keith. You want to tell the story about him coming towards Keith, and then
Well,
I'll talk to about.
well, okay. So, yeah, they, it was a young bull elephant. Now, the backdrop is 2 weeks before we left on this trip, there was a woman in Zambia on one of these safaris, and it was a group of people in one of these vehicles, and a big bull elephant got upset and charged the vehicle and flipped it. And so this woman from the United States died. She was about 70 years old, I think. She died 2 weeks before we left on this trip. Now we're not in Zambia, but we're in South Africa. And so as this elephant, young bull elephant, starts coming towards me in the Toyota Land Cruiser, three people can sit, but I'm on the far right, Karen's on the far left, and this elephant is on my side, and he's looking at us and walking towards me, and I'm thinking, he's not really aggressive, but you gotta be careful about these things. So I start moving more towards the center of the vehicle, and everything worked out fine. Our driver never got concerned or anything. But then Karen's on the far left, and I never saw this, but an elephant walked by her on the far left. And again, Karen has to tell the story. I didn't see it, but he raised his trunk to her, and we found out since then that that's an invitation to play. So this elephant was connecting with Karen on the left, as I was concerned about a little bit of a threat on the right here. But again, it all worked out. There was nothing happened.
Well, my elephant was just inches away from my door, and we connected. And there for a moment, our eyes were connected, and I almost reached out and touched his trunk. But then I remembered the elephant that killed the woman. So I didn't. But then everybody asked, "Did you get a picture? Did you get a picture?" I said, "No, we were connecting. We were having a moment." They were a little upset that I didn't get a picture of my elephant. Okay, so then we saw the brothers. And these brothers liked to tussle. You see, they're tussling right here. They're just playing. And so okay, so these are the elephants that are they're protecting um, their babies, and they're going to send them behind the trees. Here they are going behind the trees. Okay, this is the elephant that's coming to see Keith.
Yeah, yeah.
Then he decides Keith's okay. Okay, here are the brothers tussling. See them?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to get something to use.
And you see the two elephants, and you see another vehicle behind them.
Hmm. See the elephant on right here got a branch, and he's going to be hitting the brother with that. Okay, leopards every day. We saw it, leopards. See the leopard? See how close she is?
That's
Oh
the
my.
hardest animal to find, and we were
Uh-huh.
lucky. We saw one every day.
Yeah. Look at this, Mama. She's upper right hand corner. She's sleeping. Oh, she woke up and she sees us. My favorite picture. This is a 9-month-old leopard cub. There's some flowers. Rhino. See how close these people are to the rhino? Very close. Okay, he's really covered himself in mud, cooling off. Here he's using the tree to scratch himself. These are wild dogs. They're vicious. Hyenas follow them. Here we're
Hyenas
following
follow,
them.
hyenas follow the wild dogs to clean up whatever the wild dogs leave behind, but they're really vicious.
Hmm. Okay, another Anyala. Oh, look at the turtle. Isn't that pretty design on the turtle? Buffalo, giraffe. See how camouflaged that giraffe is? Zebra. Okay, impalas. They're just enjoying themselves. At one point, these two locked horns, but I guess it was all in good faith.
Impalas are snack food.
Hmm.
Here's the Sand River.
We walked across the bridge. Okay, the preserve had an electric fence around it to keep um, poachers out and all other animals as well. Um, and so here we are going down the road. Okay, at nighttime, we're on our way back to
Have
to
dinner.
our to have dinner, and the
Luca,
tracker
yeah.
Lucas would use his flashlight, his powerful flashlight, uh, in order to let the animals know that we were on the road. Don't bother us. Oh, well, there we go. Our last breakfast, and the chef was just really special, wonderful.
Goodbye. Says goodbye.
Goodbye. Yeah. Now we're on to Victoria Falls.
So,
Victoria Falls.
so, so what we did was we flew from South Africa now to the country of Zambia.
Hmm.
We flew, and again, on one of those 37 passenger planes that Karen doesn't like. So we landed in Zambia in the city of Livingston, as in Dr. Livingston, I presume. If you remember that, he was supposedly he found Victoria Falls. So Victoria Falls is a boundary between Zambia and Zimbabwe. The water flows off of the Zambian side. So in order to see the waterfall, you need to be in Zimbabwe. So we landed in Zambia. We entered the country officially in the airport. We then were picked up by our tour guide, who then took us to a different Zambian office where we effectively exited the country. It took about a 10-minute drive to get there. And then we had to drive into Zimbabwe, which again was another 20 minutes to get to Zimbabwe. So you land in Zambia, you immediately cross into Zimbabwe, and we stayed in the city of Victoria in Zimbabwe.
Okay, so this was our hotel in Zimbabwe. And this is the Zambezi River right outside our hotel. Okay, and they had swings. And who doesn't like to swing? So a lady stopped us the next day. She had a 2-year-old, and that 2-year-old, she said, was the youngest, but she pointed to me and said, "This is the youngest at heart." And so there we are, both on swings. Okay, so we had warthogs in the area, and
On
what
the
they are
grounds of on the
on the
hotel grounds. They're on the hotel
yes,
grounds now.
hotel grounds. And so they're eating fruit here. You see the fruit, and it's intoxicating fruit, and so naturally intoxicating. And so what they do is they eat a bunch of this fruit, and the hotel person said, and then they go crazy because they're drunk. And so one of the warthogs, this one, he decided that there are electric fences around, small electric fences that create the barrier, and supposed to keep the animals out of the hotel's grounds, but unfortunately they don't. So what happened was this warthog found that he saw some fruit that looked better than what he was eating, so he jumped over the the electric fence so he could get his fruit.
Karen was about 20 feet away from that wild warthog.
Okay, so now we are entering Victoria Falls. Victoria Falls is 2 miles long, and so we had a 4-mile hike, and it was quite wet.
It's one of the seven wonders of the world. It's
Yeah,
larger than Niagara Falls.
right,
It got more water flowing through it. It's longer, it's higher. And there's Dr. Livingston.
right. And okay, so let's go back. And what are these, Keith?
These are skulls of elephants, elephant skulls.
Okay, we have the beautiful falls.
Unfortunately, you can't hear the water rushing with Zoom here. If you're just looking at the video on Karen's computer, you'd actually hear the water rushing, but there's no sound, unfortunately, in this.
Yeah. See the rainbow? Oh, see the rainbow here. But this is Keith. He had enough of it.
So
He
as you got further in, there was more water flowing and blowing and whipping up on us. And you see, we have raincoats. We bought the raincoats before we left for the trip because we knew we would need them. But the further in and the closer you got to the falls, the more water. And at this point, the water was just pelting my face, just hard, pelting all over me. And I decided I had enough. So I turned around, whereas Karen and the guide kept walking further in. Now,
yeah.
on the right-hand side of this, you see, if you look at the top, you see some people. These people are in Zambia. They are on the side where the water is coming down. So they're in Zambia. We're in Zimbabwe. It looks like maybe 200 yards away from where we are, maybe a little bit further. And they're playing around up there. I think that's insane with all that
They're
water.
they're very close to the edge too.
Yeah, very close to the edge. Just got their swimming suits on and just having a good time, I guess.
So while Keith was away, I was just he had gone farther away from the falls. I my guide and I were there, and we were just amazed. And I said, "Wow, God is such a master artist." And the the guide said, bent over and leaned over and smiled, and he said, "He's the best. He's the best." And so we started talking about, well, okay, if this is so beautiful, oh my goodness, what is the new creation going to be? Oh my goodness. So we were just marveling at the beauty.
See how the water spray is shooting up? Man,
Yeah, we were soaking wet. But by the time we walked back to
we
the
were dry.
car, we
We were
were
dry.
dry. And this was not the high season for water flow. This was less than what it can be at the high season.
Yeah, February, March is probably a little bit more
Hmm.
water. We were there in April.
Yeah.
But that was enough water for me. I didn't need to see any more.
Okay, tell about the bridge.
Yeah, this is the bridge that we crossed over the first day we landed, again in Zambia, and then we drove across the bridge into Zimbabwe, and we didn't realize it the day that we crossed the bridge. But this bridge is built in the early 1900s, and so they only let one vehicle at a time go across the bridge. People can walk across the bridge, that's not a problem, but only one vehicle at a time. And I didn't really notice the day that we crossed over, but only one vehicle at a time goes across. It is kind of impressive. So on
Okay.
the last day that we were there, we had signed up for a dinner cruise, and it was to be from like 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Here we were on the dinner cruise boat, so to speak, and it turned out to be neither dinner nor a cruise because Karen, you may know, is gluten sensitive. She gets sick if she eats anything with gluten.
I'm a
And
celiac.
our Yeah, she's a celiac. And so the people that set up the tour for us, everybody along the way knew that Karen was gluten. No matter where we were, they couldn't even at the game reserve, they had special snacks for Karen because they knew that she was gluten free. So we get on this boat and they've got menus. So the first thing you do is look at the menu and then tell them what you want. And the menu was impressive. I mean, they had really nice selections on the food. But as soon as Karen said, "I'm gluten free," the waitress looked at her like she's crazy, like, "Oh, what gluten? What what's gluten?" So obviously we didn't eat. I could have eaten, but I wasn't going to eat. Karen couldn't eat. And then the cruise part was, I don't think the boat was in motion more than about 20-25 minutes of a 2 hour event. We basically sat out in the middle of the Zambezi River while people ate. And if you were there to eat, you had a wonderful time. If you wanted to cruise and see animals along the river, that wasn't happening. Now here we did see a hippo, okay, but that's it. And so when we got home, we told the tour company that they A plus for the trip, A plus for the trip, but they need to let people know that when you sign up for a dinner cruise, if you're gluten sensitive, you're not going to have dinner. And frankly, it wasn't a cruise. Sitting out in the middle of the Zambezi River for an hour and a half is not cruising. So anyway,
Okay.
that was the only little bit of a down part of the entire trip. That was
But
the last night.
we did enjoy the sunset. Oh my goodness. That's not doctored. That is the true sunset. And so Psalm 8, 3 to 9 says, when I look at the night sky and see the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars you set in place, what are mere mortals that you should think about them? Human beings that you should care for them. Yet you made them only a little lower than God and crowned them with glory and honor. You gave them charge over everything you made, putting all things under their authority, the flocks and the herds